walking through the Exchange Admin Center. Welcome to part 4. In part 3, we looked at compliance management and organization, and today we're going to be looking at protection and mail flow. So when you set up Exchange, you have the option to enable or disable the mail filter, and the default is obviously to leave it enabled. But you can disable it, and if you do have your own, or how can I say, set of rules in the company that you want on how to um, handle a malware detection, then you can come in here and you can actually create a new anti-malware policy based on what is required and fill in all the options here. Um, it's a little bit detailed. It will take you a couple of minutes to do, but generally most organizations stick with the default. You can't remove it. You can see it unless you obviously have another one in place. If we move over to Mailflow, this is where things get interesting in a sense that we can now set rules, define our accepted domains, our policies, and then handle the receive and send connectors along with delivery reports. So you might have a situation where you have a rule where you say, anything from this domain, drop it because this domain is spam or it's malware, or you might have a rule to say, if this happens, do that. Um, so you can go in and you can choose from a predefined set of rules here. You can apply disclaimers to your emails, and then you can go right off the bat with a blank rule and give it a name. I'll go with my famous test name. And then you can say if the sender is, let's say, user one, I want to do the following. I want to BCC the message to myself, and then we can set the auditing on this rule. We can enforce it. We can specify policy tips, and go. If you go down, you can obviously add um, activation rules, deactivation rules, and then stop processing more rules, etc. Just be aware that RMS, you do need an enterprise cal, as with some of the other features in compliance management. So once you've gone through everything, you can save this, and then it will be in the list here, and you can set the priority based on how you want things to apply. So you might have, for example, like this US financial, which is something that's here. I didn't actually create it. As I want this rule to be at the bottom, for example, then I can just use the arrows and I can change it up and down. I can edit the current rules, and if you go here, you can actually copy a rule. So let's say you've got a rule that BCCs for a certain user. Maybe you want to copy it for a new user or for another, like a manager or somebody's under investigation, for example. You want to know what's going on. Then you can do that. You can delete these rules. You can see they're not locked. And then you can also, if you have a long range of rules here, and I've seen some have a lot defined, then you can obviously search for them. If we go over to delivery reports, I don't normally play around here, but if you want to search for a delivery report, you can then select the mailbox, select the users, etc., and then you can find it. I generally do a search in PowerShell if I'm looking for something, um, but again, it's based on request, and also depends on what the organization. Maybe you want to know what's going on, and you have a request from a manager, etc., that you have to do this daily, weekly, etc., and you can come here and do it, or you can use PowerShell. Accepted domains is your company's domain. So for example, if I have tlab.com, let's say I bought exchange.com, I can come and add it as authoritative here, and then that's my second domain, meaning that I own it, belongs to me, it's not somebody else's. On the domain side of things, when you add a domain, you have the ability to set this. So maybe you've got a domain that's internal and you only want it to relay within your organization. You would obviously not choose authoritative, but you would choose internal relay, and you will specify the name and the accepted domain. And then the last option is external relay if you're relaying to another server in a specific location. You can change the default domain. So for example, when you install an Exchange server, .local, whatever your domain name is, will always be the default. You can come into a domain here and you can choose this checkbox here and say, make this domain the default. And then you can also change any of the options here. It's not hard coded to say that you can't change it. We can go to email address policies. Email address policies, there's a default policy, and what it does is it stamps a mailbox with this definition. If I had to come in here and change this, and then I go to my email address policy, I can then come in and say it applies to all these. Um, how can I say recipient types? And then the format, I can come in and I can edit this, for example, and I can make this .com. But you can choose how you want this to apply. Do you just want the alias? So do you just want user one, or do you want the full like name dot surname or initial surname or name initial of the surname, etc., or the reverse surname first name? It all depends on the requirements of the company. Once you've made your selection, you can click save and save, and it's telling us that it's not applied based on the changes that I've made because I've modified the default. Now you can see it's now showing tlab.com instead of tlab.local. And if I apply this and go yes, it'll obviously go and apply this. Again, you might want to leave the default policy alone and then go and add your custom policies to apply. I've done it before where there's multiple companies with under the same umbrella company, but they all want their own email address format. So based on um, organizational unit, you would apply this kind of policy to this OU, and that is how they will work going forward. Again, if you have multiple items here, you can remove them, change the order, etc. Coming to receive connectors now, this is the fun part. You'll see that I have an anonymous connector created. By default, these 5 are the only ones that are in Exchange. Anything else that you want has to be created. And anonymous means that I'm allowing, I wouldn't say open relay, but it's unauthenticated. If we come into anonymous, it's got the standard, it's enabled, it's got the standard size limit, the number of hops, etc. The security, it's got TLS enabled, and if you scroll down, obviously this one doesn't have anonymous checked for some reason, um, which it should be. Now, if you go to any of the others, generally this is your main connector, your default front end server name. All of these have the size limit of 36 megs, and each of them have different kinds of authentication. Obviously, this one has got anonymous on it as well, but you'll probably get the 571 a client cannot authenticate error. And if we go to the scoping tab, you can see that I'm allowing this IP address, for example, on here. Generally, you shouldn't fiddle with the default, but I was just testing. And then the bindings, what port it's binding to, and then your hello or allo that will, if you do a telnet to the IP of this Exchange server, this is what it will respond back with. Now, generally, you can't change this to your domain name because it's tied. And then anything else on here, don't modify this because then you break mail flow. As mentioned, leave the defaults alone, create custom connectors. That way, troubleshooting is a lot easier. These, and I had a situation the other day where an Exchange server just wouldn't send and receive mail. It just kept on coming up with strange errors in the logs. And the only way to fix it was to remove every single one of these connectors. And then once I removed them, recreate them again. And after recreating them, everything was back to normal. Mailflow started functioning, and cannot explain why it did what it did, if an update broke it, if it didn't break it, if it was Windows updates, if it wasn't Windows updates, I don't know. There was no indication of compromise on the server, nothing. If you want to do troubleshooting on your connectors, the best thing is to do is turn logging on. As you can see, logging is on here. You can turn it off. Many do turn it off. You can see it's this one is off. So if you want to turn it on, you click the on button and then it will apply. Again, I'll go through the process. You click on, gives you a warning. Are you sure you want to enable it? Yes. Uh, Same for anonymous. Anonymous, I want to see what's going on in the logs. And the log files, it's under C program files, Microsoft Exchange Server version 15 logging, and then you can go look at all the HTTP log, sorry, at your SMTP send and SMTP receive logs. Coming to the last option here is our send connector. I have a test connector here. I will remove it just for the fun of it so that we can recreate it. So by default, when you install Exchange, if you don't have any other Exchange service in your environment, you won't have a send connector. So it'll come up as a warning when you install Exchange saying there's no send connectors in this environment. What I'm going to do is when you click on the plus sign, you first thing you have to do is provide a name. I'm going to call this my send connector. You can call this whatever you want to. It doesn't have an effect on Mailflow or anything. And then I normally go for internet. This says to send to the internet. If you want to do internal to an intranet server, you can do internal custom and then partner servers. You might comes down to certificates as well, which we'll deep dive into in a later stage. So you can choose internet, click next, and then if you are using semantic, a smart host like Mimecast or any other kind of smart host that you are routing your mail through, so your Exchange server is not going to be, how can I say, the primary sender, then you can say route through smart host. It'll go through to your smart host and out. And then you have the option to use DNS lookup. If you're going to rely on MX records for your domain, then you can leave it as a default and then you can click next. The address space, um, if you use sender-based routing, like an SBR, and you do get software for SBR, then you would obviously not use star for everything. You would then have a star for all other domains, but if you have a custom domain, you'll put the domain in here, and you can define your cost, and click save. We're not going to do a scope send connector at all, and then click next. And then this is the servers that you are sending from. So your firewall will have to allow mail on port 25, 587.110.143.995.993, etc. If the source server that you define is not on the firewall to allow mail out, it's going to give you that 10061 error in your queues to say that it cannot send. So you choose a server here, you click add. If you want to add both servers, for example, you can do that, and then you can click finish. And you can see that logging is off on this, and the status is enabled. If you wanted to stop mail flow like immediately, you can just disable it, and the same would apply to your receive connectors. If you wanted to disable it, you can disable it, and then you can enable it again. Now, maybe you are sending mail out via different providers, and if you don't want IP addresses to be blacklisted, for example, so you send some out the first one, some out the second one, some out the third one, then obviously you would cycle your connectors on, off, etc. Enabled, disabled, same thing. So that is it for this video. We covered everything under Mailflow here, and protection, we covered the malware filter. In the next video, we will look at mobile devices, public folders, and then servers as the last three. Oh, that's not good. Trial has ended. And then we'll move to hybrid and obviously go talk about the hybrid configuration wizard in the last two, maybe the last video, last two videos. I hope this has been helpful to you, and if you enjoy my videos, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you very much for watching.